And we are live. We are live. We are live. So I just want to welcome everybody tuning in to Discover Your Other Self, Season 3, Episode 7. And we have a special guest today. His name is Richard Moore. And I'm going to give you some more. See how I did that? I'm going to give you some more information about who he is. And we're going to just chop it up and talk about his life. All right. High level, just to kind of give you a quick synopsis of who Richard is. He's I call him the conversion artist. Like, we never had a discussion about that naming convention, but that's what I call him. But he is a sales consultant. He's like the consultant of the stars, right? But before I bring him on, I want to announce a few things. So this past Sunday, we just had a show called Cooking with Class. So for everybody that had a chance to tune into that, it's a one-of-a-kind experience. It combines all of our favorite elements. You got food, you got DJ music, and then you got conversation. So big shout out to Jay Class, who's on the ones and twos, and who is our chef, our master chef. And then obviously we talked about his story. And then we also talked about the other announcement, which is, I'm not even gonna say anything. I'm just going to have you guys watch what I got going on. This is a quick announcement, and it's for March 29th. So just bear with me a quick second here. Make sure we got this going. Oh, see, hold on. See, we just got to work out the kinks. It's okay. We're going to get this going. All right. I'm happy to announce that this guy right here, yes, Reggie Waterman, will be launching a book very shortly called Discover Your Other Self. And it's inspired by the live stream that I host week over week. And it's not going to be just about my story, but it's going to also encompass a lot of other people's stories. Because at the end of the day, we're doing this all together. But what I wanted to really introduce you to is a virtual Book of the Month club that I will be kicking off as of March 29th, where I will be interviewing a variety of different authors. Because at the end of the day, hey, I want to learn how they started their process from start to finish, but I also want to use that as a mechanism to inspire you. So if you want to join the conversation on LinkedIn Live, feel free to tune in March 29th, and we'll be doing this month over month. Can't wait for you to join. All right, so this Monday, I am proud to announce that we have our first official virtual book club, and this is an opportunity. It's a platform where we want to promote authors. We want to promote their books, their stories, and at the end of the day, we want to talk about their journey in terms of how they got started. So I'm so happy that we're going to start that and kick things off. We'll be doing that once a month, so look out for that March 29th, and I'll be sending out creating a events page so that you can get more information for when we start. So without further ado, let's bring on our guest of the half hour, my buddy, Richard Moore.
Hey man, how are you? And congrats. It sounds like a great idea, that book club. That's awesome.
No, thank you. So if you got a book, I don't know if you do or you don't, but if you got a book or you think
I don't actually. It's been suggested. I've not got around to it, which is a bad excuse, right? But yeah, there's so much good stuff out there, and I'm a massive book reader, so great idea.
No, awesome. And hey, man, thank you for joining this conversation. So let's just get started. Who is Richard Moore? Who, outside of, and the thing is, we could talk about your live streams because they're brilliant, they're amazing, because you offer up tremendous value to your community. But who are you? What are you about?
Yeah, so good question. I think there's been a number of iterations of me, and I'm firstly a husband and dad. I've got two girls and an amazing wife, and I'm 40 years old, and I have had a number of iterations. My kind of career didn't happen the way it was meant to happen to start with. I wanted to be an academic. I had finished my master's and wanted to do a PhD and then stay in academia, write books actually, and become a lecturer at uni. I didn't get funding for my PhD, so I had to get a job. And this is 2002. The first job I got was selling internet marketing back then. So 19 now years ago. And so internet sales back then was an interesting world. This is a very different time, of course, we're in. And so I learned as a shy, introverted guy who was like, I was a good student, I was a good boy, but I wasn't like this gregarious person or anything like that. I was quite shy, and I had to learn to sell B2B, cold calling, and ask CEOs for cash over the phone for marketing of their business. It's kind of tough. And so I kind of learned the art of speaking to people in a way that made them want to listen rather than be irritated. And there was an interesting thread through my 20s because although I didn't get to be in academia, I soon in my work became a sales manager, and then I was coaching people on how to sell. In my private life, I also had kicked off Taekwondo. So Taekwondo became a thing for me. I became an instructor, and I hung up my dobok about 2 years ago, but I've been teaching all the way through to 2018. And so that was like, I ran a couple of academies, and teaching was a thing there. And after about 10 years in the city, ultimately ending up as a sales director at a recruitment company, I had a number of, I'm sure we'll get into it, a number of personal things happened to me as a real pivot moment. And then I decided to run my own consulting business. So helping still coach selling, and then helping startups getting their first sales, getting to market. And if I zip ahead to today, I help consultants get clients on LinkedIn. So I specifically focus on conversion rather than cute numbers of profile views and engagement stats and things like that. It's focus on how to actually get people to step forward and then in turn pivot them into deals. So I'm loving the life of design right now. There's been a lot to get through to get to here, but in the background, I'm just enjoying being able to help people. It really matters, and being on shows like this is really flattering that you're keen to hear about what I'm all about.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing that, like a quick synopsis, because at the end of the day, if you have not seen Rich Tips, #Rich Tips from Richard Moore, man, his lives are truly something. They offer up free advice in terms of how to build content, how to engage, and how to really integrate that human element, which a lot of people are missing when it comes to that engagement piece. But if you think about like what you had, and you said something about creating the life that you wanted, right? Designing it the way that you wanted.
Yeah.
When you think about it for a quick second, you want to kind of go down the academia route, right? And then that didn't really work out according to plan. Yeah. And then you found yourself going into the path of sales and just having and mastering the art of the conversation, mastering the art of the pitch. Where do you think that ability and your gift to connect with people, where do you think that comes from? Where does that stem from for you?
It's a really good question because, both my parents were teachers and they weren't particularly massively outgoing people or anything like that. I think it was a product of needing to be a certain persona. So strangely, one thing I was taught by my mum was you don't get to quit. If you've committed to something, you have to do it. And you have to go through a bit of abuse sometimes to get there. And so work was tough to begin with. She's like, you don't get to quit. You have to find a way. And so that was off the table. So it kind of forced me to learn the way I needed to kind of learn how to communicate. But I've always been an observer of people. I'm very fascinated by the behavioral mechanics and nuances of why someone might or might not act in a certain way because of certain influences. So that of course affects my craft now because it's, what words have what effect because of thinking with empathy as to why someone might react in a certain way if they are a second connection, not really aware of me, checking out my post, like how do I get them to act in a certain way or not? And I'm fascinated by that. And so always, ever the student, it's interesting you have a book club. One of the first things I bought when I started my job selling was a book on how to sell. So I'm the guy that would spend all his commission on the weekend going to like a seminar on how to sell better and like books on negotiation. So I wanted to always better myself. So but I think weirdly, although my mum never really focused on teaching me this kind of communication side, because of not being able to kind of put it down and quit on it, I knew I had to be on the pitch.
Outside of and the thing is, I think we're having some internet issues. So, as you can see, Richard is very ecstatic about his craft. Oh, we're back. We got some freezing issues. It's okay. We gotta work through this. You know, I can see you now. Hello.
Can you hear me at all now? I really
yeah, I can.
There you go.
No, it's okay. You know, listen, it's funny. Every time that I've taken this show like to a different time zone, so usually I do this at night, and this is the second time that I've done it through the day, and I've had like some glitches throughout the day, and it's like weird. So I'm and it's like we have to let our intuitions just guide us through this whole conversation.
Well, you know, both of us are live streaming guys, and like the number of curveballs you have to handle in the moment is crazy, especially, you know, when you're on multiple platforms at the same time. So, yeah, man, sorry about that. I think it was my fault, so I'll take that.
It's okay. It's okay, man. It's okay. But anyways, listen, you still have fans. Like, look at Rob Berry. Shout out Rob. He just wants to say, hey, Richard's a rock star. I've learned a bit, you know, quite a bit from him. So thanks for tuning in, Rob. See, even Carol knows technology is the best. It's the greatest thing in the world.
Totally.
It's never going to be perfect.
But I think it's handy. Well, this is one of the upsides. Just want to say, you're talking about nuances and things like that, and what you're doing when you're engaging with an audience. Having tech that screws up on you when you're live is a good way of showing your audience how you can manage the moment and how you are under pressure. You know what I mean? And when things go wrong, do you panic or do you fix it?
Listen, I've learned now, Richard, just to make it awkward. I'd be like, stand like this.
Yeah. What are you doing to my show, man? You're ruining my show.
It's all good. But you know what? I want to also talk to you about you. I just honed in on something when you were making your introduction. You know, you said that you had to make quite a few pivots.
Yeah.
And let's talk about some of those pivotal moments in your life that were challenging for you, and how did you overcome some of these hurdles?
Yeah. So, I mean, if we look, there's two significant, there's a number of them, like with anyone, but there's two significant things that affected the direction I would otherwise have taken. Again, there's others that pop into my head as I'm saying that, but the two main ones are, when I was 11, my parents split. And so my mum, who was part-time teacher, didn't even drive, like we were broke, raised 3 kids. So she's, by a light year, she's my hero. But that changed the direction of things. And the divorce and the split was bad because like I didn't see my dad for 25 years. So I only connected with him in 2006. Yes, it's 2016.
Wow. So
it's a very interesting world, you know, there was no father figure. But to be fair, like I didn't know what I was missing too much, you know, and my mum did an epic job. So that was a sliding doors moment. And there, you've got to remember the time is very different to 2021 in 1992 it was going into. And there was a lot of like, you have to be the man of the house. Because I have 2 sisters. I'm the middle child. So 2 sisters and a mum. It's very much like, you got to be the rock. I'm like, I'm 11. But like it was like an element of independence. And I think one of the things I remember about my mum is that she never complained about stuff. It never was her, this just wasn't what she did. And she was kind of, no matter how bad stuff was, she would always be tight with her emotions to a degree to preserve, you know, things of her children, I suppose. And I think that was really important because it made me grow up a fair bit. And she gave me, you know, there was a lot of like becoming independent. She was like, I'm at school. You guys, when you get home, you're going to need to like do the laundry, like tidy it's not just tidying the rooms, like make the beds and that, you know, pull your weight kind of thing. And so I do my best to be, you know, self-sufficient is what I'm trying to say. And that's really affected me. So I'm really thankful for that. The other thing was when I was like 31, so like 20 years later, I had my grandmother, who was really close to me, she passed away. And that same year, we had our first child. So this is like 8 years ago, actually. So we had our first, almost 9 years ago, sorry, because it's 2021 now. My first child was born, but she was born without an esophagus. So she had no food pipe, basically. So wow. I didn't even hold her. She was straight to surgery. And I literally lived in the ward with the baby and my wife for 3 months. So I was eventually then I was commuting to London from a hospital. And it was brutal because it was like, there was a lot of touch and go and a lot of like, is your baby going to die kind of thing, and prep for if that, you know, people handing you leaflets, like being prepared for the worst. And basically the surgery worked, but you know, her windpipe was very floppy, so air wasn't getting in. It's like harrowing times, and there's been a lot of therapy since. And that was the August after my grandma died. And about 2 years before that, my mum had got cancer. And so I was handling that too. So I was like, after work, I was going, right, is it my daughter or my mum tonight? Like, who am I seeing? So I was really getting stretched. And then 3 months after my daughter was born, my mum passed away. So there's this rock who had been the apex of our family gone. And we were it was coming. We knew it was coming. But then when she passed away, it was like, it was tough. And so what's interesting is that, and hindsight is so powerful and you can use it for perspectives and so on. That year was harrowing, sure, but I was getting on with it, and I was like hustling to keep the world moving. What happens after all of this bad stuff and going through it is the following years are often worse, because then you look back, it's like this big aftershock. And so I imploded completely. Like, I could not work. If I could not think about what I would even have for dinner, everything was too hard for me. I was just a mess because I was done, like, emotionally. So weird logic takes over, man. I was like, do you know what? I'll just throw myself at work. And I had an impossible job at the moment. At that time, I was working all hours, and I was like, I'll work more. And eventually I got to the point I was like, they could pay me triple. And like, what am I doing? I remember looking at, it's such an important moment. I remember looking at my face, and it was like this gray face with yellow eyes. And I was barely seeing my daughter. And I was like, what am I doing? And I remember we went away to you've probably heard of Robin Hood. So the actual Sherwood Forest, we booked this cabin in Sherwood Forest, middle of nowhere. And it was meant to be like this perfect getaway, you know, like hot tub and everything. And I was just like a shell of a man. And I would just like, I was sitting there, I was crying. The thought of an office, I would just be crying. And luckily the manager, the CEO of our company was being really solid about it. He was like, you take the time you need, man. I'm here for you. But I was just like, something's got to change now. And my wife was like, the one thing you can do is sell. So you know you've got this if you need to.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. You've got, like, here's the permission, go do it. And it was an interesting time because I had a lot of imposter syndrome and fear. Even though I was good at what I did, I was like, can I do it on my own? And I was like, do you know what? I back myself. I think I can. I was having a lot of even quite close people saying I was being irresponsible because my wife was a lawyer, but she couldn't work. She's looking after her baby. And it's like, well, hang on, you're stopping your city job to like try and make some money. What are you doing? This is terrible.
They probably thought you were crazy, right? They're like,
they're like, now suddenly they're all fine with it. But like back then they thought it was a terrible idea. And I just like, so it was really hard. There's no support there other than, you know, my wife and my belief up here. And I was like, you've got to make it work. And again, I think it was interesting. There was this thing of like, you're not allowed to quit. You don't get to quit. So you've got to find a way. And I basically from there on has been my therapy. And we talk about designing your world and designing your life and not wanting to go to a place where bad things can happen to you and not avoiding stuff that's hard, but creating a world where you're stable and robust and your family's safe if, you know, if something happens to you and things like that. So these are all my motivators now. But they're the moments like that year and 18 months or so was really a huge thing. And perversely, I'm grateful for what it put me through. So it sounds crazy. There's a lot of gifts my mum gave me, even in passing. And one of the best gifts she gave me was the resilience as an outcome of her passing probably 30 years before she should have. So she's definitely a hero and someone who's really helped me. And, but you know, you want to do her proud and things like that. But it was a very important moment. And I know it could have gone a number of ways, but it was this feeling of like, you don't get to quit. You've got responsibilities now. Let's go make something good that you want to relish doing, rather than the slog of having to go to a job that actually I wasn't really getting down with at all. So a huge moment, and picking myself up took time. You know, that was a real hard time. But yeah, and I'm here now in a guise that I'm happy with. And I think everyone needs to always be thinking about this. And I was 30 odd when it was happening, but everyone needs to be thinking like, am I really happy with who I am and what I'm doing and what's surrounding me?
Yes.
And, you know, it matters so much. And I'm glad I'm not 80 looking back and going like, do you regret, or are you feeling all right? I really feel like I feel like
that's that's what a lot of people feel at that age. Like when they get older in their latter years, they're like, oh man, I regret not doing this and that. But like, I want to rewind, because you said a lot of powerful and impactful things there. So number one, I want to say thank you for being vulnerable to share everything that you went through. And let's just talk about going back from childhood. And what I want people to really hone in on is the mere fact that everything that happens to you in life, whether it is through childhood and even now to the present time, is every setback is a setup, right? We've probably all heard that, right?
Yeah.
But if we break it down, the divorce back in, you know, when you were 11 years old, and the level of responsibility that kind of came onto you, that was forced onto you at that age, you're probably like, okay, I'm 11 years old. I just want to play with my toys. I want to watch cartoons, right?
Exactly right,
Your mom's probably like, listen, Rich, you got to start paying some bills, right?
I know. It felt like stop driving the family to sunset.
Right? You see this 11-year-old driving a car, like, what's going on? Anyways, and then you fast forward, and my condolences to you and your family when you lost, you know, your grandmother and your mom. And then, you know, having to go through the struggle of, and the anxiety levels of dealing with your daughter too, without having esophagus. And you said the pamphlets that you received. That's a moment in time where everybody is looking forward to, you know, bringing this life form into the world. And now you are just like, okay, I don't even know if she's going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hold her for almost 2 weeks. She was in an induced coma, and that whole year was operations, in fact. So it was like this very delicate thing, who was a month premature, and and you want to attach, but yet at the same time you worry about it, because like, is this baby going to make it? And my wife was grieving eventually for the happy few days after birth you'd expect to have, you know, getting a home and everything. And it was like, we didn't get to do that. So luckily we had the gift of a second child who did do that, and like, she was born with no complications. But it was a real trial, but it really made me grow up, because I think there was elements of me that I needed to shed as an adult. In my 20s, it's not that I would seek a pity party, but if it was something hard enough and there was a way out, I might take it at times. Whereas this big instance, this big kind of year of hardship really taught me, like, it's better to go through, not to flex and be a hero and impress people. It's better to go through because then you have a bit more control and influence over the outcome of things, and you don't feel like you are this bystander or spectator with things happening to you. You got to, you know, help steer the ship a bit and control what the outcome could be. And I just think growing up is tough, but when you're given things like this, it's also really good for the brain. Like, my perspective now is crazy. I appreciate I'm not invincible, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, man, think about what some people have to go through, and like, if you think about what I have been through, and if I can handle that. And so I remember the years afterwards, I was always like, I can handle this. I can handle stuff. If I've handled that, I can handle most things. And that perspective, like I say, there's definitely an upside to having had that pushed upon you.
No, and like you said, being able to manage everything all at once prepared you for the moment that you had to actually go into business for yourself. Hedge that bet on yourself, because not a lot of people do. Like you said, people like to they end up regretting challenges that they never, took upon themselves to do because it was either too scary or they're just scared that, you're a failure.
Or they never detach, they do it like in the evenings, and that's cool. I understand sometimes it has to be like that, but never fully detach. I'm like, go, do it. Like, it's you. And if you screw up, who's paying for the house? There's no safety nets. Like, go get it. And that kind of pressure was that's a thank you to what I went through in my 20s, building, like learning to sell and stuff like that. I was like, you got to hit targets, man. And even now I still do it with myself, just like, make sure your fam's okay. Make sure you hit your target that you want to do each month and things like that. And Rob's right. Now, I think came safe. And they came from playing it safe. That's quite right.
Yep. Thanks, Rob, for that. And then Tamara says hardships are great teachers. And she's absolutely right. There's so much lessons to be learned in the hardships. So shout out, Tamara. Thank you for sharing that. Melody, always good to see you. If you keep going through the struggles, you gain strength in who you are. Absolutely right. Now that the mentality that you also mentioned, Rich, not giving up. There's no there's no quitting.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Who?
Yeah, I think it was something that came really from my mum, but especially in the years after the divorce. And I think what it was an element of she'd been beaten down. A lot of bad stuff had happened to her between her and my dad, and so she was like, do you know what? It was almost like I'm going to own this situation. We're going to sell. We're going to move to, I want to find my dream home. We're going to move to a new place. I'm going to start a new life, and I'm going to show that I can do this on my own. And so like, that was really noble of her. And I'm sure she did complain and moan plenty. She had a lot of stuff going on, but especially the last couple of years, that really is an important thing I remember that when she was going through so much bad stuff, accepting the fact that she wasn't going to make it to old age, that she wouldn't see her grandchildren, accepting that, this was kind of it for her and she wouldn't get to travel or anything like that. I do remember feeling like she's not bottling it up, but she's choosing like how much it's going to affect her. And I really hold on to that as a very important thing to draw strength from. So like I ran marathons. One of them was for the daughter, the charity that supports my daughter, and another one for the charity that supported my mum in her chemo, in her cancer. And I think that like things like that, like running marathons, is good to put yourself in these hard places and remember what other people are going through and say like, you're doing nothing compared to what they had to go through. So I like tough stuff. I like going into, like, I'm doing my first 100K bike ride this weekend. And yeah, I've been building up. I've done a few 75Ks, and this is the big one finally. So on Saturday, weather permitting.
So how long does it usually take you to rides for 75K? Because I want to kind of
get 3 hours. So I'm very consistent around 25K an hour. So and it's quite flat around here. It's not too bad for hills and that. But yeah, so I'm expecting 4.5 hours. I'll let you know how I do. But yeah, weather permitting, I'll do that. But like doing this stuff is good for you, right? But also it's really good for this. And when it gets hard, I've always been able to tap into that. I remember the first marathon I did in 2007, actually, and I was just like, those last couple of miles, it's not training, it's if you want it. And I remember thinking like, think about what people have gone through, and then the later ones after my mum passed, I was like, look what your mum did. I think you can do the marathon. Like, don't complain, get on it. And it's like, it's really good to galvanize yourself like that sometimes. I really, so it's given me a lot of toughness. That and reading David Goggins' Can't Hurt Me book, which should be in your book.
Man, I listened to that audiobook of David Goggins, and I would listen to it when I'm running, and he would just drop the stop being a bitch. Don't be a bitch. Right.
But I'm the same. I don't listen to music anymore. I listen to the audiobook, which is far better than reading it, without question. I think it's everyone should consume that book. It's really important.
It is. It can, like, he talks about like having a callous mind, right? And that callous mind will help you get through challenges in life. It's a build-up, right? If you think about all the hardships that you went through, just people in general, you could get through anything, right? It's just a matter of sheer wit and like you said, your ability to challenge yourself. if you're just gonna be in the warm water and just soak it all in, but why don't you challenge yourself and go have a cold shower, right?
Exactly.
Test out your fight or flight mechanisms, right?
I totally agree, and I just think that like it's surprising what you can go through, and I think it's good for you. It's healthy to push yourself a bit. But yeah, that book makes you realize what's possible. But the guy's been through a lot himself, which is why he's such a hard guy. But you're right, it's layers, it's layering. So you can't do that right away, but you can build up to it by doing, increasingly bigger things as well. So yeah, it's a great book. I really love it.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So listen, we could have got into a whole bag of conversation about what you usually do, which is selling, and that's your gift. And I want to thank you for obliging me on this conversation, because at the end of the day, I wanted to kind of peel back the layers for everybody to get to know you. And again, you provide a lot of value to your community. And let's talk about the community building that you have created, not just for yourself, because it's not just about you, but it's for others.
Yeah.
Let's kind of dive into that as our last segment of this conversation, because I want you to inspire people to start doing that. Like if I think about the DYOS community, I want to give a shout out to everybody tuning in, like even Carol, Melody, Tamara, Robert, Christine, everybody else. Let me know if you're here. Like, let me know who's here. Say hi. It's okay, right? Like, let me know if you're tuning in from, because we appreciate you. And I know we usually have this in the evening time, but listen, we're on a virtual world tour and we had to get this guy on the virtual stage. So but when I think about the DYOS community, and they're so great, engaging, interactive, and they inspire me to do this week over week.
Yeah.
What's your perspective on building community? What does it do for you, and what does it do for others?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it does a number of things. It allows you to give back. If you have a gift and you're good at something, it's good that you do. Even the events I run, the Entrepreneur Business Live events we ran before the pandemic, we leveraged them to put money into local charities. So it wasn't even after profit, it was literally all the ticket money went to charities. So we raised like $5,000 in 2019 for local charities from Melbourne to Barcelona, San Francisco, New York, and one in Toronto. We went all over the place doing these events. And it's nice to catch up and have communities, but it's good to be able to give back. And I feel the same about the other ones I have. So over 4.5 years ago, I started my weekly live stream. So it was episode 243 this week. And every week people show up and ask questions. And it's amazing. If people want to show up and ask questions, then I should show up and validate that effort. And it's amazing because it helps everyone, like including me. It's nice to hear what people really need help with and be able to do that. But also it's nice to see people grow as they do over the years and help them along the way. And like, we're getting on for 2,000 questions that have been asked now. It's a crazy amount of time done. Yeah, every single Monday, 1 p.m. I'm there and doing it. It's kind of fun. But I built that as well as my entrepreneur business group, which started in 2015 on Facebook, just as a way of creating an environment where there's similar people who are doing similar things. Because it was a way of saying, like, do you know what? I could go join other communities, but it makes sense to have people around me on, for the ride I'm building. And if you're at home a lot, or if you're working remotely, or if you're not in an office with a bunch of people, you need your crew, and sometimes your crew can be your community. And so it's nice to be able to give back. And the other thing is that they validate a lot of the time what you're doing, and they Rich Tips, for instance, is a hashtag that the Entrepreneur Business Group came up with, because people were like, hey, you should have a hashtag. I was like, okay, Paul, what's the hashtag then? And the people created this hashtag. I was like, hey, that's cool, let's have it then. So it's like, it's nice for market, but it gets so much from it, a lot of depth, great relationships, wonderful friendship groups, but also it makes your life a lot easier. There's referrals, there's connections, and there's networking. And if you look at the Entrepreneur Business Live events that came out of the Entrepreneur Business Group on Facebook, these events, 2 hours, 3 speakers, and networking for an hour at a WeWork. That's all it was. But those events didn't require me cold calling or pitching people or advertising that people should come. I did it the other way around. And the angle was, build a community and give them an event. So they were selling out. I remember our first New York one in January 2019, and like filled the room, no problem. People were flying in from all over because it was like, wow, hey, we get to hang out. This is cool. And it's like, that's the way to do it. So it's amazing because it helps kickstart so many things, any new initiatives, any new projects or products. My team, you know, they've all come from that community. So they're my family, really. And it means that I've got, you know, my whole crew, all the people who help me with different parts of my business are all people I've hired from that audience. And it's a really wonderful thing to have them around for so long. And it's nice growing with them, you know. So it's kind of about, like I say, about that validation, but also about building some kind of a family that's like your tribe to a degree. It's kind of nice to have.
Okay, cool. So if I summarize that, it's about building the relationships, networking, creating that interaction where the community actually feels part of the growth and establishment of what you're trying to build.
That's it, right? Yeah, exactly. And they can come along. They don't just come along for the ride to spectate, but they get involved. Like, for instance, in the group, I did a number of times. I've done like, right, for the next 2 weeks, we're going to do a live stream every day, and you lot get to do it. So hands up, who wants to do one? What are you going to talk about? Right, you become admin for an hour. You go do your live stream. Like, everyone's putting back in. So I just want to, you know, it's nice to have a community where they're all helping each other. And I know a lot of friendships and connections and deals and opportunities that come out of me creating the platform, maybe, but them interacting with each other. So it's just really nice to hear that kind of things happening.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna leave you with this last thing, because it wouldn't be a LinkedIn live event when we got my boy Richard here without asking him. I'll put you on the spot right now.
Okay.
3 rich tips for creating content, for building your personal brand, whatever. Okay, let's go.
So 3 tips. Are we saying we're starting from nothing? Like we're at day 0.
Day 0. Yep. So
first thing to do is recognize your level or where you're at. Everyone goes into this kind of thing with expectations of like, well, I need no comparative. I need to be really good, right? Like everyone else. Like I did in a bit of content last night. You're going to suck to start with. That's how it's going to be. Embrace the fact that you're starting out and don't worry about it too much, because the very act of doing it over and over again helps you hear yourself and therefore hone your philosophy on what you believe and things like that. And one of the things I really believe is that by doing, for instance, my live shows, even though often the same questions keep coming up, like when you've answered, what do you say when someone says X in the DMs for the 37th week? You actually get quite good at answering it. And so you get really good at understanding what you're good at. So just get on the pitch. Action is everything there. So just start. Second thing I'd say is don't fear the hyper niche. Everyone talks about getting into a niche, and I go into a hyper niche. So rather than say I help people with sales or I help people with LinkedIn, I help specifically consultants, specifically with conversion, and specifically on LinkedIn. So there's 3 layers of niche. And a lot of people fear that because they're like, well, I'm going to cut out so much audience. It's still millions. You're still all good. There's so many people out there you can work with. So go hyper niche, because you'll be really clear then. You'll naturally be speaking so clearly to specifically certain people. And that means they're like, oh, that's definitely me. You can help. And that they're much more forthcoming that way. But then your content should have a focus on a niche, and you should be just embracing putting it out there. The other tip that really helped me a lot, like really move the needle, is collaborate. Don't have too much pride that you can't involve other people. Don't act like you're the big shot and no one's good enough for you. What I did on LinkedIn, I started really with the content in March 2018. So it's been 3 years now. I deliberately found people that were bigger than me. I did a vid with them, and I recorded and stuck that clip on LinkedIn. So there's me with 1,000 followers meeting someone with 26,000 followers. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, when they are tagged and they're like, oh, that was a great hangout, thanks so much, they write in their comments, some of their audience comes as well. And that really stepped me up. And also, it got me into the right circles of people where really exciting things are happening. And a sneaky bonus one, which is still related, is to spend time with winners. Just with winners, and it's attitude sometimes, but also it's what they've achieved. Because if you collaborate with them, or at least you're in their company, it really does rub off on you. So that this is all related to content, because that makes your content better. It makes you raise the bar, and it means that they're part of your world as well. So it helps you get known too. Hopefully that helps a bit. But those, just off the top of my head, those three are crucial.
No, I love that. So embrace the suck.
Yes.
Right. Embrace the suck. And you mentioned
focus on hyper niche.
Hyper niche. Collaborate.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then you just stick with winners. And I love the winners in this community. Everybody's a winner. So everybody, let's celebrate Richard in the comments. Throw some fireballs in the chat, pyromaniacs. Let's go. Travis is in the virtual building. All right, cool. Jane, what's up? I want to thank you all for tuning in. Now, I know I said in the events page that I was going to do like a fancy replay of this later on this evening, but I have to tell you all something. I tapped into my spirit this morning, and I was telling Richard just before we came on live, like, I'm very spiritual in nature, and my intuition. Thanks, Travis. Thanks for the fireball. See, Travis is a pyromaniac.
Cheers, Travis.
And then we got Melody. She's got firecrackers. All right, cool. But my spirit and my intuition was telling me that I just need to chill for a quick second. So as much as I would love to come back this evening, I really need to find it within my own spirit just to decompress for a little bit. So unfortunately, I won't be coming on live again this evening. I've been on live since I was on live Sunday, and then I think on Tuesday, and now Thursday. So I'm gonna give myself a little break.
Yeah, have a break.
But if you want to tune in, Travis has an amazing show this afternoon. So he's gonna be interviewing DJ D Money. And Richard, DJ D Money's our DJ, our resident DJ.
Yeah, he's amazing. I watched the previous video.
He's amazing. I was hoping that Richard would have like pumped out his Spotify playlist, but he's like, nah. He's like, you don't want to listen to Mozart and Pavarotti. So I'm like, all right, it's all good. Anyways, Rich, I want to thank you again, sir. I want to give you back some time. So I appreciate you and all your gems and all your rich tips. Embrace the suck, guys. It's okay. It's okay to suck. All right. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Cheers.
All right. Bye.